All right, live stream should be starting up right about now, guys. Happy Sunday. Hope you guys are having a good day. Super excited to talk about the Week 11 main slate here. If you guys are new to the channel, how this live stream will work is we'll take a look at the Vegas numbers, and then we'll kind of go position by position. I'll talk cash plays, I'll talk GPP plays, and then we'll get to questions at the end. Let me tweet out that I am live, so give me 1 second, and then we can jump into it. But yeah, I still think this is it's a pretty nice slate. Like there's, besides a couple like chalky plays, I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. There's no real standout game stack, which I think makes it kind of a good slate for GPPs. Right, last week what we had Cardinals and Bills, right, and there was like 2 clear games. It feels like every slate there's been a couple clear games to stack. In this slate, I don't think there's really a clear game to stack, so I kind of like it for GPPs. But yeah, let's talk about the Vegas numbers here. So we have only one game right now over 50. That's Green Bay and Indy. We have starting Falcons, Saints of 49.5 or under. The Saints are 3.5-point favorites. We got the news that obviously Taysom Hill confirmed starting. He's going to be obviously the absolute chalk in FanDuel. He's going to be very popular in DK too. I think he's a good play. I laid out my worries, right? I'm not fully confident that he plays the whole game, but at that price point, he does make for a nice value. Bengals and Washington, it's a 47.5 over under. Washington's 1.5-point favorites. With Detroit and Carolina, 47 over under. We did just get the news. XFL star PJ Walker is going to start. Bridgewater's out. We have Patriots, Texans of 48.5 over under. The Patriots are 2.5-point favorites. We have Eagles and Browns of 45.5 over under. The Browns are 2.5-point favorites. Steelers and Jags is a 47 over under. The Steelers are 10.5-point favorites in that one. I'll talk about it a bit more, but Steelers, it's kind of weird how they've been approaching these games. Last game they were huge, or they're playing from a big lead and has continued to pass. We'll see if that continues today against the Jags with them being pretty big favorites. Titans and Ravens, a 50 over under. Ravens are 6-point favorites. Lamar Jackson is my favorite play of the day. With everyone going to Taysom Hill at quarterback, I'll just spend up a couple extra $1,000 more for Lamar Jackson. I love him in GPPs. With quarterback being really thin today, right? We have no Mahomes, no Kyler, no Russell Wilson. Give me Lamar Jackson all day long. Miami and Denver, it's a 46 over under. Miami 4-point favorites. Jets and Chargers a 47.5 over under. The Chargers 10-point favorites. Cowboys and Vikings, we have Andy Dalton starting, 49.5 over under. Vikings are 7-point favorites. And finally, again, Packers Colts, this is the highest over under of the day, a 51.5 over under. Colts are 1.5-point favorites. All right, let's talk about quarterback. And again, Lamar Jackson, 7-3, he's the guy for me. Love him today. The quarterback being really thin. Again, there's going to be so much ownership going to Taysom Hill that I'll just spend up a couple $1,000 more to be a bit contrarian. I think you can still go to Lamar in cash if you want to. Like, no one's going to do that, but he's got a really high floor. The matchup's great. I still like the upside is still there with Lamar Jackson. He's had some tougher matchups. If you just look at the last 3 games, Pittsburgh, Indy, New England. Those are all 3 really good defenses. Now he gets Tennessee, one of the worst defenses in the league against both the run and the pass. Give me Lamar. Again, he's my favorite play of the day. Love him at that price with quarterback being thin. Aaron Rodgers is 7K. I like him for GPPs. Sure, the matchup's not necessarily the best, but again, this is the highest over under the slate. You have Devontae Adams on your team. You have Aaron Jones. This offense is still going to score points, so Aaron Rodgers is always really in play for me for GPPs. Herbert at 6.8 is a little bit pricey, especially the matchup against the Jets. I'm just a little bit worried with them being pretty big favorites that, maybe they rely on the ground game a bit more in this one if they do get off to an early lead. So there's some risks there. Big Ben at 6.7. If you think Pittsburgh's going to continue to air this ball out no matter what, if they're playing from ahead or behind, then you got to have interest in Big Ben. You have 3 guys you can pair him with. Trying to nail down which receiver is going to be the one to go to is a little bit tougher with Deontay, Juju, and Claypool. But yeah, it's really good to see the volume here for Big Ben with 42 and 46 pass attempts. Again, that game against Cincy, they were playing from a big lead the entire game. They won 36-10. He still threw 46 times. So, and the matchup's great here against Jags. I think you got to have some interest in Big Ben. Again, you have 3 clear guys you can pair him with. And no Drew Brees. We'll talk about Taysom Hill, who's going to be the chalk this week. Deshaun Watson is 6'5", so there's positives and negatives here. The positives are he's running the ball more. The price is really good, and the fact that Houston's defense is really bad. Always, most of the time, Deshaun Watson and this Houston offense is playing from behind, which is really good. Like, that's what you want in your quarterback, that you want them to fall behind, so he just has to air it out. My concern here is I just hate New England. I just don't like seeing New England on the slate. They play so slow. They're just going to run the ball every single play. So if this game is close, or if the Patriots are playing from ahead, the game is going to slow down in a big way. So that is the concern. I think the way that this game kind of shoots out is if Houston actually plays or gets off to an early lead, so then New England has to air it out more. I think that's it. Weirdly to say, but I think that's actually better for this Houston offense if they get off to an early lead with Watson in the passing attack. It's a weird game. I don't like seeing New England on the slate. So again, positives and negatives there. Bridgewater, conflicting reports. He was originally active, now inactive, so he's not playing. We'll talk about PJ Walker, who is at a very similar price point to Taysom Hill. You could look to the pivot in GPPs. He's got upside, he's got rushing ability, and no one's going to play PJ Walker. Matt Ryan's in play every single week for me for GPP. 6'3" is a very fair price. You have Ridley back. You have Julio. Two clear guys you can pair him with. Every single week, Matt Ryan and a passing attack is in play for GPPs for me. Cam Newton at 6'2". What you need here, again, you kind of need the patience to fall behind if you're targeting the passing attack. Because in games they've been playing from ahead or it's close, they're just not going to pass the ball, right? 15, 17 pass attempts in 2 last 4 games. It's a situation where there's risk. But if things do work out and Houston gets off to an early lead here, you could see a big game from Cam Newton. He's been doing a lot more on the ground recently. You have Jacoby Myers, who looks pretty good. I think will be popular. But like I said, if this Patriots team is playing from ahead, this game is going to slow down in a big, big way. Kirk Cousins at 6'2", you kind of see the same thing about Cam Newton, right? Minnesota's a run-first team. And this is a game they're probably going to be playing from ahead. You never know. Andy Dalton's back. Maybe that's a slight boost to this Dallas offense. In games they've played from ahead, obviously they're going to rely on Cook a lot. In games that it's close or they're playing from behind, when Kirk Cousins has to air it out more, he does have upside. You have, 2 cheaper receivers in Thielen and Jefferson I think look decent if you want to get off chalky Dalvin Cook. So probably I wouldn't go there for cash games, but it is viable for GPPs. I'm not looking to Tannehill. Stafford's fine at 6K against Carolina, but it's not super, super exciting. Tua against Denver is probably past for me. Once is in play for GPPs because he at least has that upside. He's been not great recently, but he does have that 30 fantasy point upside. The concern here is, once again, it feels like a third or fourth straight week, the bad weather in Cleveland. This is the game that's the bad weather. It's going to be raining the entire game. So, yeah, that does make this game a little bit more risky with the passing attack. Philip Rivers, I don't really want to play him, but I'm not going to really talk you off him if you go there. He has thrown the ball basically 40 times in the last 4 games. Green Bay's defense is not great, and he's had over 20 fantasy points in basically 3 of the last 4 games as well. So, if you want to go Philip Rivers, I get it. I'm not going to go there, but the price point and the matchup at least makes him viable. You can say the same thing about Joe Burrow, right? He's going to throw the ball a ton here. 47, 40, 39, 37 pass attempts last 4 games. And no Joe Mixon there. I have to rely on the passing game even more. So 5.5K is a very, very fair price here for Burrow. Definitely someone you can go to for value. You can say, Alex Smith is viable too. He threw the ball 55 times the last game. This game is kind of sneaky for a game stack. Sure, he's viable, but not super, super excited about that. Again, Dalton, same thing. Matchup's decent, but it's Andy Dalton. And then finally, the chalk here will go to, it's Taysom Hill. Yeah, Taysom Hill and PJ Walker at the exact same price. Hill's going to be the absolute chalk. He's starting. I've laid out my concerns, right? I'm not fully convinced that he's going to play the entire game. If he starts bad and they fall behind, I think they could go to Jameis Winston, and he's going to be literally the absolute chalk, especially on FanDuel, even on Draftkings. Everyone's going to play him in cash games. I think there's risk involved. I think there is. That's why I feel just more comfortable spending up with Lamar Jackson. But for cash games, again, you can make the argument for Taysom Hill because he's going to be so popular, and if you play him in cash, he's probably not going to kill you either way. So, yeah, I get the play, but I think there's still some risk. He's a good rushing quarterback, right? He's a guy that has come in at times, when Drew Brees has played, and he's shown he can do a lot. I'm just not convinced with his passing ability, so the matchup's good. The price is good. And again, I think he's a good play in cash because basically everyone's going to play him. but someone you can definitely look away from in GPPs, and that's the way that I'm going. I'm going to Lamar Jackson today. PJ Walker, if you want a direct pivot and no one's going to play him, PJ Walker, again, we did just get that news of Bridgewater being out, so he's at 4.8. He's shown upside, right, in XFL. Obviously, NFL is a different story here, but it's not like Detroit's defense has been great. So, like, this is a good matchup. I think you can give him a look, and I don't think a lot of people get to him. I probably wouldn't do it in cash, but kind of like his upside in GPPs. It's a risk, but again, that's like the direct pivot if you want to get off a really, really chalky play in Taysom Hill. So that's kind of the breakdown there for quarterback, and for me, it's Lamar Jackson. I'm just going to spend up. I just feel more comfortable with it. You know, Taysom Hill is probably the guy you look to in cash, but there's still risk, right? I'm not fully convinced he's going to play the entire game, even with the coach talk. We just cannot trust coach talk this year. We've seen it numerous times this year where coach is like, oh, we're going to limit this guy or not play him a lot, and then he plays like the entire game, or the opposite, right? So it's just, I don't feel amazing about it, and with the ownership going to be so high in Taysom Hill, I'm fine looking elsewhere. But again, cash games, you, I guess, probably go there. Let's move on to running back. So McCaffrey's still out. Kamara at 9.2K with Taysom Hill playing quarterback. This is actually a downgrade to Kamara. Like, sure, they're going to run the ball more, but the passing, like, the reason he's priced so high is because his pass catching ability. I just don't think Taysom Hill's going to drop back a ton. Now, if they go to Winston, then if Jameis Winston was playing quarterback in this game, I would like Alvin Kamara a lot more. But with Taysom Hill starting, I'm not as excited about Kamara. Like, he will get more rushing attempts, but the reason you like him is just because the pass catching ability. So, not saying he's out of play. I just think he's more risky with Hill playing quarterback. Now, Dalvin Cook's the chalk at 9K, and I agree with that, right? He's a workhorse back, bell cow back. He'll get some receiving down work. This is an amazing match against Dallas. He has upside to go for 30 to 35 touches. He's broken the slate a couple times already with 51 and 42 fantasy points in 2 of the last 3 games. So, yeah, you do play Dalvin Cook in cash games. Again, he's going to be popular, though, so you could look to the opposite side in the passing attack for GPPs with like Cousins and either Jefferson or Thielen. But yeah, right now, Dalvin Cook is definitely one of the top, probably the top cash game play there at 9K. Derrick Henry is an easy fade for me. I know some people talk about him. Sure, the ownership's going to be low. There's just no way I'm going to Derrick Henry. Against Baltimore, I know they're missing a couple pieces, but the carries are going down, right? Early in the year, he was the guy getting like around 30 touches. Now it's about 20 touches. Again, the snaps are going down. He's getting like 50% of the touches. That's not good. No involvement in the passing game. And even with Baltimore missing a couple pieces defensively, they're still a good defense. And this is a game Tennessee's probably going to be playing from behind. So they could abandon the run edge. I don't want to play Derrick Henry. I'm just not going there. Now, Aaron Jones, I kind of like as a contrarian player at 7.2. He was the chalk. He was a little bit of letdown last week. This is a tougher spot, and I just don't think a ton of people get to him. Right, you have Dalvin Cook on the slate. You have a couple other running backs. You have Keelan Ballage. I think is probably the best cheap play. You have the Detroit running backs you can look to as well. So Aaron Jones is going to get overlooked. There's obviously still concerns here. He's not a bell cow back. They're going to give Jamal Williams a good amount of touches, but he's still very productive with his work. And he's a guy that has, he can break the slate. He broke it in week 2, run for 48 fantasy points. So, yeah, Aaron Jones, kind of like his contrarian play. Probably wouldn't go there in cash games, though. Chubb and Hunt is stay away from me. They're still a little bit too pricey. I know Chubb had a good game last game, but he is touchdown dependent with no involvement in the pass game. And with that being basically a 50-50 split, I just don't want to do it. Sure, this is rain game, but maybe they're relying the run a little bit more, but again, you kind of need a touchdown here from Chubb to pay off his salary, and I don't want to rely on that price, especially with the fact that he's not going to get a full workload of touches with Hunt basically splitting the work. So, not super excited about either of the Cleveland backs. Miles Sanders at 6'9" is viable here. Cleveland is tougher against the run, but he still is the bell cow back, even though he got vultured a couple times last week. That was super tilting. Sanders is in play. Again, I think more of a contrarian play, though, because Cleveland is a little bit tougher against the run. Mike Davis, with PJ Walker playing, is a little bit of a hit to him, but Detroit, again, has really struggled to defend the running game. Still no McCaffrey. Mike Davis, I expect him to be out there majority of the time. He's shown he's a good pass-catching running back as well. So we're not getting a 4K like we did last week, but still a viable play. I think more of a contrarian play as well, because now with PJ Walker playing quarterback, just makes him a little bit riskier. James Conner, same thing. Contrarian play for me. He's still the bell cow back. He played almost 90% of the snaps last game, but only got 13 carries. So I don't know what Pittsburgh's doing. That even though they're playing from ahead, they're still passing. Now, is that going to continue? No, maybe they're relying on the run game a little more. And we've seen some big games from Conner this season, right? 23, 27, 20 fantasy points. He still has upside. The matchup's really good. They're huge favorites here. So maybe they just change it up and just rely on Conner a bit more. And you're going to encounter a very low ownership with, I think, the receivers being pretty chalky today. So, yeah, kind of like him as a contrarian play as well. I do like Zeke at 6'5". I know the snaps are going down for him. He's probably only going to get like 70% of the touches with Pollard getting more work. But this is a game that, Minnesota is not great defensively. Zeke is still a talented running back, and I think Andy Dalton playing is a little bit of a boost to him. So kind of like Zeke here. I don't think a lot of people get to him. 6'5" is probably one of the cheapest prices you'll get Zeke ever. So I think he's a viable play there in the mid-range. No DeAndre Swift. We'll talk about the cheap running backs for Detroit here in a sec. James Robinson, the volume's there, but the matchup's not great, and they're going to be playing from behind this one most likely. So I'll probably stay away. We have no Mixon. We'll talk about Gio in a second here. I'm not going to get to Gurley. No thank you on Murray with Kamara playing. I'm not going to consider the Colts running backs. It's a three-way split. I know Hines had the big game last week. If you want to go back to the well, I think he's, I guess, an okay GBP play, but it's hard to feel confident when they're going to be throwing three running backs to get touches. With Gibson versus McKissick here for Washington, both are viable plays. It's all about how you think game flows. You probably want to target Gibson if you think Washington's playing from ahead. McKissick if they're playing from behind. McKissick had like 30 touches in the last couple, or 30 targets in the last couple of games. So yeah, Gibson if you think they're playing from ahead. McKissick if you think they're playing from behind. Both are viable plays here. Again, 14 and 15 targets. It's probably not going to continue, but this is a game that I think is a sneaky game stack. I'm not going to go to the Patriots backs. Damian Harris is too expensive there at 5'7". Balaj at 5'6" is probably my favorite play here in the mid-range. He's getting a good amount of touches. They're big favorites here. They said he's still going to be their primary back. He played about 70% of the touches last game, or 70% of the snaps last game. Josh Kelly's snaps went down. It's basically only those two. Pope did not get any touches. We still know no Eckler, still no Justin Jackson. So expect Balaj to be the go-to guy here in a game that should be playing from ahead in a good matchup. 5'6" is a very fair price. Chargers have been running the ball more. So I do like Balaj here. Definitely probably one of my favorite plays in the mid-range. Giovanni Bernard at 5'5" is viable, right? He's still going to be out the majority of the game. He's shown he's a good pass-catching back. He's not going to get a ton of carries, but 5.5K, he's had over 20 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So, yeah, I think Gio's fine. Definitely viable, but not like my favorite play. Duke Johnson at 5'4". Got a bit of luck. He played him last week. Again, he was in the high-dollar tournaments. He was very, very popular. He played 95% of the snaps. He just had no targets. And I don't expect that to continue. Like he's shown he's a good pass-catching running back. So Duke Johnson's viable, and he's gonna be like their bell cow back. No David Johnson, definitely someone you can look to as well there in the mid range. Like there's 3 or 4 running backs here in this mid 5K range, but Balaj is probably my favorite. He probably will be the most popular though of the bunch. Other options at running back, I'm not gonna go to the Baltimore running backs. 3-headed monster, no thank you. Salvon Ahmed with Breida back, I'm not fully confident in it. I don't know what the workload's gonna be, what the split is gonna be. He was like their bell cow back last game, but there was no Breida. We have Breida back in this one. So you can still go there, but he's riskier option. And then finally, we'll talk about the 2 Detroit backs, and then we can move on to wide receiver. So Detroit running back situation, no Swift. It's going to be AP. It's going to be Kerryon. They said AP is going to start, but I think Kerryon will still get a good amount of work. Maybe like a 60-40 split or even 50-50. I think Kerryon is the better, pass-catching running back. They're both at mid-price for running back. The matchup is decent here against Carolina. They probably will be playing from ahead. So I think both running backs are in play here for value, definitely. It's just trying to nail down which one's going to be is a little bit tricky. Again, I think AP probably is going to be the early down back. Maybe Kerryon Johnson, the 3rd down back. I would expect a pretty even split, maybe like, again, 50-50, 60-40. And with them both being min-price, you can look to them for value for sure. All right. Let's talk about wide receiver. So wide receiver is tricky. Like, I don't think there's any real standout plays at wide receiver. You have Devontae at the top at 8'6". If you can get to him, obviously I like it. The matchup is not necessarily the best, but it doesn't really matter with Devontae Adams, really. Like, he's matchup proof. He's a guy that's going to target a ton. This has enormous upside. The most upside of anyone, clearly, at wide receiver, even in a bad spot. So Devontae Adams at 8.6K is definitely in play. If you can get to him, there's enough viable value plays. There's like 3 or 4 cheap receivers that I think look pretty good in this slate that, yeah, you can definitely jam in Devontae if you want to. Julio and Calvin Ridley against New Orleans, both are good options in GBPs. If you want to go to one of those guys in cash too, I think that's fine, right? The price points are definitely doable. This is one of the higher over-unders of the slate. My one concern, I guess, is just that with Taysom Hill playing quarterback, maybe the game slows down a bit. And again, with the Saints, I think we'll probably rely on the run game a little bit more. Maybe that affects the land a little bit, but Yeah, Julio, Ridley, definitely in play here. Both have huge upside, and both are at fair enough prices there at 7.5 and 7K. You're probably going to feel a little bit more comfortable with Julio for a little bit more just because Calvin Ridley coming off the injury. There's reports that he doesn't still look 100%, but yeah, both receivers are viable here. Keenan Allen, 7.4, I like. He's going to get a ton of targets. My one concern is just that, am I confident the Jets can score enough points here? I don't know, right? So this is a game Chargers are probably playing from ahead. Maybe they don't rely on the pass game as much. But he's still a guy you can basically project for double-digit targets every single week. High floor with him, so fine with Keenan Allen if you want to go there. Michael Thomas is 7.3. If Jameis Winston was playing quarterback, I would really, really like him with Hill playing quarterback. It makes him a little bit risky. Again, Hill kind of unproven as far as the passing quarterback, so I like the price point a lot on Michael Thomas. I like the matchup a lot. It's just the uncertainty with Hill playing quarterback does make him a little bit riskier. Still viable, but again, there's risk involved for sure. I'm not going to get to A.J. Brown at that price. McLaurin at 6.9, I kind of like it. Again, this game is kind of sneaky for a game stack. McLaurin, kind of like Keenan Allen, you can expect basically double-digit targets every single week. Washington, another team that's been throwing the ball a lot more here. So, and the matchup's good. I like Terry McLaurin. I think he goes a little bit overlooked today with there being, you got the two Atlanta receivers. You have Devontae, you have Keenan Allen all at the top. So I think McLaurin kind of goes forgotten about, but like his upside there at that price. All three Pittsburgh receivers with Juju, Claypool, and Deontay are all in play. If you're going to make me pick, I'll go Deontay because he's the cheapest of the bunch. But like I said, this is a great matchup, and Pittsburgh's been throwing the ball a ton. I think all three look pretty good plays. All three you can go to in cash if you want to. With Thielen and Justin Jefferson, again, these guys are kind of nice pivots off of a chalky Dalvin Cook if you want to go that route. All right, last game we had Chicago, what we saw was the passing attack that actually got there. So, yeah, 6.3K is really cheap, and Dallas has struggled. So both Thielen and Jefferson are viable. And if you want to get off a chalky Cook, that's one way to leverage it, is you just go with the quarterback or the wide receivers there. Other options at wide receiver, let's see. So both Cincinnati receivers with Higgins and Boyd are definitely viable here. 5.9 for Higgins, 5.6 for Boyd. We know Cincinnati's going to throw the ball a ton, right? They don't run the ball a lot. You can expect almost double-digit targets of both Higgins and Boyd every single game. Both have been really, really solid, so I like both. I don't think either are going to be super, super popular, but yeah, I think both Cincinnati receivers are viable here. Both have upside. Both have a pretty high floor, in my opinion. So yeah, I do like them in the mid-range. Hollywood Brown is a strictly GPP play. Even though I'm playing Lamar Jackson, I'm running a naked Lamar Jackson. I don't feel comfortable targeting him with anyone or pairing him with anyone. If I was going to pair him with someone, it would be Mark Andrews, just because tight end is so weak today. Other options at wide receiver, let's see. Marvin Jones Jr. is the clear number one now with no Galladay and no Amendola. He had 10 targets, 8 catches last game. Matchup's decent here. I think he's a perfectly fine play. I think he's a good play you can go to in cash or GPPs. No issue at all with Marvin Jones Jr. Brandon Cooks, I've heard it might be pretty popular today. Again, there's the concern, right? There's just the concern of this game is going to be played at a slower pace if New England is close to playing from ahead. And if I think Cooks is going to be really, really popular, I'm fine looking elsewhere. It's sure, the targets have been there for him. I don't necessarily think he's a must-play, though. If you landed him, that's fine, but I wouldn't really prioritize him. And again, what I'm hearing, I think he might be pretty popular today. The Dallas receivers, I think, look like pretty decent options. I don't think a lot of people get some. They're really cheap. 5.4 for Cooper, 5K for CD, and below 4K for Michael Gallup in a matchup against Minnesota. Sure, I know with Andy Dalton playing quarterback, but I think there's some upside here with these Dallas receivers. So, yeah, I'm fine with any of them, to be honest. All at cheap enough price points you can look to them. Other options like Jacoby Myers, another guy I think will be pretty popular. I laid out my concerns, though, right? He's getting a ton of targets, but New England is just not going to throw the ball a lot if it's close to the playing from ahead. So I do like Jacoby Myers, and if New England falls behind, then you could see him break the slate. If this game starts Houston 14-0, I think Jacoby Myers could go for 30+ fantasy points. He has that type of upside, but you kind of need the Patriots to play from behind. If it's close, we know it's going to be a heavy dose of Damian Harris, some Burkhead, some James White as well. Other options of wide receiver, let's see. All of the Colts receivers are in play here. Pittman, Pascal, T.Y., all at cheap enough price points. Green Bay, again, this is the highest over under of the slate. So all three viable here. I don't know if one really stands out more than the other. I think Pittman, he had the big game last game. I'm fine if you want to go there. T.Y.'s at 4.2. He hasn't really had a big game yet this season. Obviously, he's getting up there in age, probably doesn't have as much upside, but that's a pretty cheap price point. So, yeah, all the Colts receivers are in play. It's just kind of tricky to kind of nail down which one's going to be. You could say the same thing right about Pittsburgh, right? When you have 3 receivers that no one really stands out more than the other. It's the same thing with the Colts, but the Colts receivers are a lot cheaper. So, yeah, sign me up for any of them, to be honest. Other options of wide receivers. Now we get to, there's like 3 or 4 guys down here that I think are viable cheap plays. Let's start with Michael Gallup at 3-7 against Minnesota. 12-7 targets last couple games. And with Dalton playing, I think that's a slight boost to him. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with Michael Gallup. It's just a price point thing, right? 3-7 just seems a little bit too cheap for guys who can play the majority of the game in a good matchup. Also have interest in KJ Hamler at 3-6. 10-10 targets in back-to-back games. Denver probably even playing from behind. And he's playing majority of the game out of the slot. I like Hamler as well for value. And then a couple other guys. Green, more of a GPP play. No one really talking about him. He's been boom or bust, but he's still like playing majority of the game. He's had some upside games. So if you want to look to him in GPPs, that's fine. I don't think a ton of people get to him. And then a couple of guys I want to mention. Jakeem Grant, 3-5. He is the number 2 right now for Miami. He's a speedster. He's going to play majority of the game. He has like slate breaking ability. He can break the slate. He has that speed. So Jakeem Grant, definitely somebody you can look to there at 3-5. And then finally, Denzel Mims at 3-3. All right, it's just a price point thing with him. He's going to play majority of the game. He's a talented receiver. 8 targets last game. They're probably playing from behind. I do like Denzel Mims there at 3.3K. I think that's too cheap for even. I know it's on the Jets. I know, but starting receiver, going to play majority of the game. Decent matchup. Yeah. So that's kind of the cheap place for wide receiver, right? There's a good amount. There's, you have Mims, you have Jakeem Grant. You can look to AJ Green if you want to. I think Hamler looks pretty good. Michael Gallup. So a lot of viable value options. The Detroit wide receivers, we'll talk about them. I think they're a little bit riskier, but no Amendola and no Kenny Galladay. It's going to be Marvin Jones, the clear number 1 guy, with Hall the number 2, and I think Cephas will be the number 3 guy. Cephas at min price, we'll probably place him out of the slot. If you want to take a dart throw on him, that's fine. Marvin Hall should be the number 2 guy. I think he does get a little bit more work here. 3.8K is a viable price as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of cheap wide receivers you can go to in the slate. About 7 or 8 guys there I mentioned below 4K that you can use for some salary relief. So, let's move on to tight end. Tight end's been really weak in the main sites. The last 3 or 4 weeks, it's been not great. Mark Andrews is the most expensive guy at 4.9. He's been not great so far this season, but still has some upside. And if I was going to pair some with Lamar Jackson, it would be Mark Andrews. The matchup variance Tennessee is really good, and he's still a guy, with Nick Boyle out, maybe that's a slight boost to Andrews. Maybe he plays a little bit more. And he's a guy that they can look to in the red zone as well. So, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with Mark Andrews, the really, really weak tight end position. Hunter Henry's always in play for me because he's going to run a ton of routes. The matchup's decent there against the Jets. I like Hayden Hurst as well. Even with Ridley coming back, he's still another guy running a lot of routes, getting a good amount of targets, 7, 7, and 8 targets. So I'm perfectly fine with Hurst. They're in mid-range. I think Hawkinson looks better at this price. Right? He was a guy that was like over 5K almost every single week. Now we're getting a more viable price for 4.2 with no Galladay, no Amendola. I think maybe they rely on Hawkinson a little bit more here. And he's a lot more viable price. So, yeah, I'm perfectly fine there, TJ Hawkinson. Other tight ends, you can look to Ebron, too, at 4K. I'm perfectly fine. Again, Pittsburgh is the team that's throwing the ball a ton. I like Goddard, but, the rain concerns, the weather makes him a little bit riskier. Still, Zach Ertz, he's going to play basically the entire game in Cleveland, even though they're stout against the run, not great against the pass. So I'm fine with Goddard. Dalton Schultz, even at 3.6, 8 and 7 targets in the back-to-back games, and the matchup's solid. So, yeah, there is viable cheap tight ends. Another guy I mentioned here, Logan Thomas, who probably pretty popular. I've been advocating for him almost every single week. He's playing the entire game. I got another guy running a ton of routes. He's not getting an amazing amount of targets, but at 3.3K, you don't need a lot from him to pay off the salary. We do have Irv Smith back at 3.4. I think not a lot of people will get to him since he was questionable. He is their pass-catching tight end, but not getting a ton of targets. I think more of a GPP play. And then cheaper tight ends, there's not a lot here. I don't really think one stands out if you want to take a dart throw on these guys. But, yeah, for me, tight end, it's Andrews at the top. There's some viable cheap plays in the mid-range with Henry, Hurst, and Hawkinson. And then cheaper options, have Goddard below 4K, but there's some weather concerns. You have Dalton Schultz against Minnesota. You have Logan Thomas. That's where I would look at tight end. Finally, let's finish up with defense. We have about 30 minutes until lock. So I'll ask real quick, guys, if you enjoy the content, to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Really does help me out. I got free content for you guys every single day as well as live streams. So let's talk about defense. The defense is a very, very highly variant position. I usually like to punt it and just hope the defense I play doesn't kill me. There's some viable plays here. The Jets defense at 2K. Again, I know they've not been great, but I think you could give a look to them. There is, let's see, I think the chalky defense is probably going to be Washington at 2.9, just because Cincinnati drops back a ton. They don't run the ball a lot, and the fact that Washington defense actually has been pretty good this year. So Washington, they're in the mid-range, I think looks solid. As far as spend-up defenses go, we can get to the Steelers. They've been really, really good, but 4-6 is kind of a lot to pay for a defense. Other cheaper defenses I think you can look to. Well, you have Eagles and Browns in the same game where there are big weather concerns. Eagles at 2.8, Browns at 3K. Viable plays in the mid-range. The Lions defense does look a little bit better, I think, with PJ Walker playing quarterback. So I know Lions defense has not been good, but going up against the backup, I think you can give a look to them. You can even give a look to, the Falcons going up against Taysom Hill. I don't think they're going to be as dynamic of an offense with Hill running the show. So Falcons defense at 2-3, viable punt play. Yeah, there's no real standout defense. I think Washington will probably be the most popular, but defense, it's such a high variance position that just go with what works with your lineup, right? And most of the time, again, I like to spend down at defense. So that about wraps up for me as far as player-by-player breakdown. We can get to questions now, so make sure to leave them in the chat, guys. I will try to get to everyone's questions. So let's do it. King Henry is a perfect. Let's see. AP. I'm not super excited about Henry today. Kind of gave that my concerns there. Never mind. Miles Sanders season. I'm fine with Miles Sanders there at 6'9". He's still their bell cow back. He got vultured a couple times. Dolphins defense looking tough today. Where are the Dolphins priced at? Let's see. Let's go back to defense. Dolphins. They're at 3-4. Yeah, I think you make the argument too for the Dolphins defense. Actually, Denver has really, really struggled offensively, and they've turned it over a ton. Drew Lock and that Denver offense. So and Miami's been really good. So yeah, I think you actually can look to Miami defense there at 3-4. That's a good call. So let's see heavy rain. See, I'm just throwing the Jets in there and hoping for the best. LOL. I don't hate it. Right, they're at 2K, and you don't need a ton to pay off the salary at that price for the defense, and it allows you to get more into your lineup. Obviously, I was in Browns D, but no Myles Garrett hurts. That is a pretty decent hit there to the Browns defense. Jerry Jeudy or Cooks. I'm not overly excited about either, to be honest. Jerry Jeudy's at 5-3 going up against Miami versus Cooks. Cooks will be more popular. Give me Jeudy, I guess. He's a guy that it really has been looking good for Denver. So, yeah, give me Jeudy, I guess. I think he'll be lower owned. And if you like Andy Dalton, Vikings could slow it down, though. I think Andy Dalton is a viable pivot for quarterback, right? You have a lot of ownership going to Hill. Dalton's at 5-3. It's a good matchup. He's not been great when he's played, but I think you could give a look to him in GPPs. What's a cash core today? Yeah, so cash core, I think it's pretty. It's Dalvin Cook. I would go with at running back. Running back's a little bit tricky because besides Dalvin Cook, I don't think there's a lot of standout plays. I would probably go Keelan Ballage too. At a running back, I feel like he is against the Jets, and with him getting a majority of the carries, that price, I think it looks pretty good. So I probably would do those two running backs in cash. As far as the third running back goes, it's a little bit trickier. I don't really know if one really stands out. There's a lot of viable plays. You can go one of those Detroit running backs you want to with AP or carry on. That's fine. But yeah, I think I would start with those two quarterbacks, and then. Even though I'm not doing it, I'm playing Lamar, but I get it if you go to Taysom Hill. He's going to be the chalk in cash. So in cash games, it doesn't really matter about ownership. Yeah, I guess you probably do it. Again, I think you still can go to Lamar with there being so much value, but probably something like that to start it with. And then tight end, with tight end being so weak, I think you probably punt tight end. So that's probably what I would do for cash games. But yeah, I'm not playing cash games today, and I told you guys where I'm going. I'm going Lamar Jackson. So best cash quarterback besides Hill, it's probably Lamar. It probably is Lamar at the top at 7-3. There's enough value to go to him. I don't really feel super comfortable with anyone else for cash games. So yeah, it's Lamar. HDK cash time looks like Taysom Hill, Dalvin Cook, Duke Johnson. Chris Conley, Deontay Johnson, Devontae Adams, Goddard, Zeke, Eagles thoughts. Yeah, so I guess I didn't talk about Chris Conley. The matchup is not great, but he's at min price, and he's at 8 targets in back-to-back games. With no Laviska Shenault, he should play a good amount of the game. It's him, Keelan Cole, and DJ Chark. So I'm actually okay with Conley, even in a tougher spot. So yeah, I don't have an issue with that for cash games. Miami quarterbacks are really good. Yeah, Miami's defense has been really solid. Any love for Cam today against dreadful Texans? I do like Cam, but again, there's risk involved. I think you need the Patriots to fall behind. They're clearly a run-first team here. CeeDee Lamb might be my favorite play for 5K. I like all the Dallas receivers. I do. I think they go overlooked in the slate. But all seem, they're at cheap enough price points. So yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb does look for a pretty good play. My regular fantasy league pick 2. Let's see, Cup, Fulgham, Balaj, Chark, Godwin. That's tough. Cup in a tougher spot. Balaj, Chark, Godwin. I think for safety, you probably go Balaj and then either Godwin or Cup. But Cup and Godwin do have the most upside. They're the most talented. So yeah, it's 2 of those 3 with Cup, Balaj, and Godwin for me. Fade Dalvin, Cowboys signed J.J. Watt. Vikings missing 3 starting quarterbacks as well. Yeah, that game has potential to shoot out Vikings and Dallas in my opinion. Henry, Zeke, Sanders. Henry, I laid out my concerns. The snaps are going down for him. No involvement in the pass game. I'm not overly excited about Derrick Henry today. What are your thoughts on stacking New England and the Texans? It's going to be a more popular game, and I think it might be a little bit over-owned. But like I said, if New England falls behind, that game could definitely shoot out. That's what you kind of need. No Mike Davis. Mike Davis, I think, is a pretty decent play in the mid-range. I'm fine if you want to go there. The matchup's good. With P.J. Walker playing quarterback, I think it makes him just a little bit more risky. It's crazy Mike Davis is in the perfect position to smash, but he burned everyone last week. Yeah, and not a lot of people didn't get to Mike Davis. So I like him as a contrarian play. Again, you can say the same thing about James Conner, who's burned people. They still have upside, both Davis and Conner. I'm fading Texans. New England slows it down. That's my concern, right? That is the concern. New England, it's just clearly a run-first team, and they're just a slow team. GPP going with Baltimore, Tennessee stack, Lamar, King Henry, Balaj, Juju, Hamler, Devontae, Andrews, Logan, Thomas, Falcons, D. So you go 2 tight ends. That's definitely a more contrarian approach. And I don't think a lot of people would do that. With tight end being so weak, that's going to be a very, very contrarian build. But again, Lamar's the guy I'm going to. Do you have a GPP core? I mean, there's no real core for GPPs. So let's kind of go with, I would say, stack the game you like the best. So for me, the game that I'm going with Cincinnati and Washington. I think that goes overlooked a bit. Both teams have been, relying on the pass game, especially Cincy. So kind of like that game as a game stack. Cade McNamara for Heisman. I was up late watching that game, man. That was amazing. I was like, man, Michigan's really going to go to 1-4 and lose to Rutgers, but Cade looked like the real deal, man. Excited about that. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, got at least some excitement there for Michigan football. Do you like A.J. Brown? Not really at that price. It's just too expensive. I would rather get to the other receivers at similar prices. Burkhead or Hines, of those 2 guys, I'd rather play Hines. But, both are similar plays in the fact that they're in 3-headed monster situations. With New England, it's Burkhead, White, and Damian Harris. With the Colts, it's Wilkins, it's Hines, it's Jonathan Taylor. So, you can go to them in GPPs, but it's you're not going to get 2 touchdowns from Nyheim Hines every single slate. So, Chubb and Sanders stack. I like the Sanders side a little bit more there. Can you go Chubb? Yeah, but again, kind of touchdown dependent and going to split the snaps with Kareem Hunt. DK, Cash, Devontae Adams, Goddard, or Keenan Allen, Mark Andrews, thanks. I think I would go Devontae Adams and Goddard. With tight end being pretty weak, I would just take the higher floor, I think, with Devontae. Even in both Devontae and Keenan Allen have high floors, but I think the upside is just higher, too, with Devontae Adams. There's some concerns there with Keenan Allen with the fact that, the Chargers are most likely going to be playing from ahead. So, how popular do you think Lamar's in the middle maker, 20-ish%? I don't know, because I assume, again, Taysom Hill is going to be the most popular play at quarterback. Lamar Jackson, with quarterback being weak, yeah, maybe around that, 20-ish%, but he's the guy that I'm going with today. Duke Johnson, Balaj, or Harrison Balaj. I'd rather go Duke Johnson and Balaj just for the fact that I know Duke Johnson didn't have a catch last week, but he is normally more involved in the pass game. He's their bell cow back, whereas Harris is just a guy that's the early down back and not really get involved in the pass game at all. They have White, they have Burkhead too, so give me Duke Johnson there. DK, what do you think about Perriman? Because I have Allen. I think Perriman is going to go overlooked today with Mims being the guy that most people get to because he's cheaper. Perriman's at 4-3. He's going to go overlooked. He had an upside. He still has some upside here. He's more of a contrarian play for me. Like, I do prefer the price of Mims to Perriman, but if you feel strongly about Perriman, again, he's going to be super, super low owned. And if you want to bring back with Allen, I'm fine with it. Birthday narrative for Juju. Again, I like all three of the Pittsburgh receivers. As far as narrative streak goes, I'm not a huge narrative streak guy, but yeah, all the Pittsburgh receivers are playable price points in a good matchup. Best cash wide receiver in the 4K range. In the 4K range, so are we talking about 4K and below, or just like 4K in general? If we're just talking about like 4.9 to 4K, I don't think there's like a standout play here. Like, I like the Colts receivers, all three of them. Pittman will probably be the most popular because he had the big game last week. It's probably the Colts receivers or Jacoby Myers, just because the targets. But again, there's risk with Myers and the Patriots. Duke Johnson and cash, I think you can do it. He didn't have a catch last week, but he played 95% of the snaps. I expect more of the same today. So, and yeah, I think he does get some more catches today. So I'm fine with Duke Johnson if you want to go there cash. Juju B-Day today, gonna give him a TD. Duke Johnson or Burkhead, I feel more comfortable with Duke Johnson. PJ Walker won me so much money in the XFL. Should I run it back in the NFL? I think you can. Not a lot of people are going to do it. He's a direct pivot off Taysom Hill chalk. And it's not like PJ Walker is a guy that has rushing upside too. So I kind of like him as a pivot off Taysom Hill. Yeah, Lamar wants revenge from the last year. I like Lamar a lot. Again, he's the guy I'm going with at quarterback. You like Gibson or J.D. McKissick? I think both are viable plays. It's about the game flow. Gibson's more viable if you think it's closer. They're playing from ahead. McKissick's the guy that you want to look to if they fall behind. So I don't know if one really stands out more than the other. It's all about how you think the game flows. Thoughts on MVS today? Yeah, not really for me. Early only, Cam Robinson, Sanders, Slamboy, Ridley, Juju, Logan Thomas, and Lions defense. I'm good with it. Let's see, tough C-Mac, but I would go Gibson. Yeah, again, that's a little bit tricky, right? CeeDee Lamb or Curtis Samuel, I would rather go CeeDee Lamb. I like his upside a little bit more. Both are similar plays. Both will play out of slot. Both are playing with backup quarterbacks, but I think I like the upside a little bit more CeeDee right now. Every time I play Deontay Johnson, he gets hurt, I'll go Claypool. That's true. Like, that's the risk of Deontay Johnson is there's like almost 50% of the game so far he's gotten injured. So if you don't want to go Deontay, just go Claypool or go Juju. They started going to him instead of forcing McKissick in the second half of the Detroit game, and they came back. They did, right? They went to Gibson a little bit more, but that was around the goal line. I don't know. Troutman, Troutman's not really for me. Cash Steelers, 3 wide receivers, or Higgins. That's tough. Any of the Steelers wide receivers or Higgins, I like them all in the mid-range. So, I don't really have a strong take there. DK, you playing Cook? I am. I know he's going to be popular, but I'm playing him. Hill, Cook, Balaj, Allen, MJJ, Myers, Thomas, Claypool, Dolphins. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Herbert, Gibson, Sanders, Gallup, Jefferson, Myers, Hooper, Devontae, Miami defense. Didn't really talk about Austin Hooper. What's his price range? Let's see. Hooper's at 3.9 against Philly. Yeah, he's still like, even though he had a bad week last week, he's a guy that is a talented tight end. I'm okay with it. Again, tight end being so weak, if you feel strongly about that, then go with it. Balaj and T. Higgins are AP and Julio. Another good question, to be honest. I'll go Balaj and T. Higgins. Just because there's uncertainty a little bit there with Detroit, whether it be AP or Carry-On. I think Carry-On does get the passing down work, which maybe makes AP a little riskier. I don't know. That's a tough question. Like, I like both sides of it, but I will go Balaj and T. Higgins there. Thoughts, DK? Let's see. Herbert, Gibson, Sanders, Gallup, Jefferson, Myers, Hooper. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm feeling Eagles defense in the rain with the I think both defenses in that game with the rain are fine. Thanks and good luck, of course. Mike Williams or Michael Pittman? I'd rather go Pittman. Marvin Hall is sneaky. Yes, he is. With there being some decent value plays today, Hall goes overlooked. Noah Amendola, I think, solidifies his role as the number 2 guy. I think that's fine in a decent matchup. Thoughts on GPP lineup: Aaron Rodgers, Cook, James Robinson, Devontae, Claypool, Jakeem Grant, Logan Thomas, AJ Green. I like it, right? You're playing some chalkier guys, but you're also taking some risks, right? James Robinson's going to be lower owned. I like the stacking, obviously, with Rodgers and Devontae Adams. You have some cheap value guys alike, and then you're taking a lower owned guy in AJ Green. But AJ Green's still playing the majority of the game. He's been very boomer bust. Price point's fine to take a shot at him. Robbie Anderson, Balaj, or Hines for PPR. I would rather go Balaj here of those 3 guys. CD Cooks or McKissick for cash. CD Lamb, Cooks, or McKissick. For cash games, another tough one. I don't know if we can expect the 15 and 14 targets to continue for McKissick, but it does raise his floor a lot. I guess McKissick there, but that's not a super strong take. Like, I think all 3 look pretty good. All 3, I think, will be somewhat popular. Conley for cheap, back-to-back 8-target games. Yeah, if you want to go Conley, I don't think it's the worst play. He is at min price. The matchup's not necessarily the best, but he should play majority of the game. It should be a good game script, too. They should be playing from behind. Harris, CEH, or Duke Johnson. As far as Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So, of those 3 guys, if we're talking just like season long, it's probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just because that Chief offense. Game stack, Burrow, Higgins, Boyd, and then McLaurin. I like it. Like, that's kind of the direction that I'm going, even though I'm playing Lamar at quarterback. I'm doing Lamar quarterback, and then kind of a mini stack there with Cincy and Washington. You like Emmanuel Sanders? Not really, just because Taysom Hill at quarterback. I'm just not. If Jameis Winston was playing quarterback, I would actually really like Emmanuel Sanders. I don't really feel good about it. Juju or Claypool? Chat, cash. Flip a coin there. I wish I had a stronger take. Can you stack Gio with Burrow? Yes, you can, because Giovanni Bernard is not a guy that's going to run the ball a ton. He's more involved as a receiver. So, yeah, you can do that. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibilities. Lamar, Cook, Balaj, Keenan Allen, Myers, Pittman Jr., Logan Thomas, Jefferson, Jets defense, thoughts? I think that looks decent. Like, you're playing Jefferson and Cook. Obviously, there's a little bit of negative correlation there with playing running back and quarterback, or running back and wide receiver, but the matchup's really good against Dallas. I think that's fine. Hines or Balaj, GK Cash, it's Balaj for me. Balaj is going to play a majority of the game. The matchup is really good there against the Jets. So, yeah, it's Balaj. Juju's birthday. Yeah, if you want to go the Juju birthday narrative, that's completely fine, guys. We got, let's see, a little under 15 minutes to lock, so we have a lot more time for questions. Make sure to leave them in the chat, guys. I will get to all your questions. If you enjoy the content, hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. Let's see. He's either going to play out of his mind or, let's see, Juju. Yeah, I mean, again, Pittsburgh, I like all 3 receivers. I like Snead to pair with Jackson. Yeah, I don't as much. He's at 4 or 5. He did have 2 touchdowns last game, but I'm just not fully convinced of Willie Snead. If you feel really strongly about it, then yeah, but he's not someone I'm really prioritizing on the slate. Here we go. PJ Walker, Chubb, Mike Davis, Robbie Anderson, Julio, Juju, Goddard, Duke Johnson, Falcons defense getting really wild. That is getting really wild. You're going with a stack of the Panthers, but again, Detroit struggled. Yeah, it's risky, but there's upside there. And PJ's going to go low round for sure. DK, what do you think about, let's see, Taysom Hill, Cook, Kamara, Jones, Johnson, Myers, Logan Thomas, AP, Flex, and Miami defense? I like that. I think it looks pretty good. I like Gallup. Yeah, Gallup's one of those guys I mentioned. There's like 4 or 5 viable plays below 4K. You have Mims, you have Gallup, you have you have Gallup, you have Mims, you have Jakeem Grant. Those are probably the 3 like cashy wide receivers below that range I would look to. You can take a look to like a guy like AJ Green. You can look to one of those Detroit receivers in either Hall or Cephas. So there's a good amount of cheap wide receivers we can go to on the slate. And with that being the case, again, that's why I'm going Lamar like at quarterback. Yeah, there's concerns with Taysom, but he's going to be super, super popular. Again, at FanDuel, if you guys aren't playing there, he's tight end, so you clearly play him there. Favorite wide receiver? Depends. Like, are we talking spend up or cheap wide receivers? I don't really know if I have like a clear standout wide receiver. Yeah, that's a tricky question. Like, I like the Cincinnati-Washington game as far as a game stack, but so maybe one of those receivers, Cooks or Myers. I would think I feel a little more comfortable with Myers than Cooks. Both are going to be popular. Both Cooks and Myers are going to be pretty popular today. So, DK, can you play Thomas and McLaurin with Alex Smith? Yes, you can. Yeah, you can. I'm playing both Logan Thomas and Terry McLaurin today. A McLaurin or Juju for cash? Ugh. I'll go McLaurin for a little bit more, just because McLaurin's like the clear guy for Washington, whereas with Pittsburgh, tough to differentiate with those three guys. DK Houses for GPP, Cam Newton, Cook, Balaj, McLaurin, Mims, Myers, Logan Thomas, and Adams. No issue at all. I like that. Cash, Hill, Taysom Hill, Cook, Kamara, Marvin Jones Jr., McLaurin, Myers, Goddard, and the Bengals D. I also like that as well. Boyd or Higgins? Higgins has been a little bit better recently. Give me Boyd, but that's like a 50-50 split too there. Lamar, Herbert, it's definitely Lamar for me. What about PJ Walker, LOL? I like Walker. I do like him as a contrarian play. He's at the same exact price point as the chalk Taysom Hill. Like, sure, we haven't seen a ton from PJ Walker, but we haven't really seen Taysom Hill start a game either. So there's unknowns on both sides. And with Hill going to be like way, way more popular than PJ Walker, I like PJ Walker as a pivot there. Do you like Sylvana Ahmed is going to be the lead back, do you think? It's tricky with Breida back. I still think Ahmed does get more of the carries, but the workload, I think, will be less than last game with Breida there. Boyd or Higgins? For me, it's Boyd, but that's super, super close. Cam Sims or Mims? I'd rather play Mims than Sims. For GP, Lamar, Aaron Jones, Ahmed, Julio, McLaurin, Boyd, Hurst, Mims, and Lions defense. Yep, that's fine with me. Samuel or Moore to pair with Walker? You know, the Panthers receivers have been a little up and down. With Samuel's had the upside, you know, but he's also had some down games. You say the same thing about DJ Moore. Where are their prices? Moore's at 5.6, Samuel's at 4.7, Robbie's at 6K. I will go Curtis Samuel for the discount just because he plays out of the slot, and maybe maybe PJ Walker relies on the short throws a little bit more this game. So, yeah, I'll go with Samuel there. FanDuel has Hill as a tight end, and he's going to be 100% owned. Yeah, he literally will be close to 100% owned. Like, I think he'll be above 95%. Higgins and Hamler or Boyd and Duke? Higgins and Hamler or Boyd and Duke? That's another tricky one. I like both. Give me Boyd and Duke, but that's really close. Curtis Samuel or Ahmed? I'll go Samuel. I'm just a little worried with Breida coming back. Now, we could get a situation where Breida comes back and like barely plays. Like, where's Breida at? He's the flat man price, full participant. Could be in store for a larger role. But yeah. So yeah. I'll go with Curtis Samuel. DK, check your inbox on Twitter. Let's see. JD from Washington, Smith. Yeah. Oh, JD McKissick. Yeah, I think JD McKissick is a guy that is 100% viable here. If you think Washington's playing from behind, he's a guy that has had 14 and 15 targets in back-to-back games. Yeah, perfectly fine, JD McKissick. Am I crazy to fade Cooks today? No, not at all. You can definitely fade Cooks. And with him being pretty popular, there's other ways to go. Higgins or Justin Jefferson, I'm not playing Cook, and I already have Boyd. Higgins or Justin Jefferson, I'm not playing Cook, and I already have Boyd. If you already have Boyd, I guess it depends what, you're playing cash GPP. If you're going for like a stack, then like a game stack, then you probably do go Higgins and Boyd. But if you're just looking for one-offs, then maybe just go Justin Jefferson. If you're not playing Cook, then it makes sense to play Justin Jefferson, right? Because if Cook is not going to get there, it's most likely going to be the wide receivers, right? So, because it's not like there's any competition for touches at running back, and I don't think Dallas is really going to shut out Minnesota. So if Cook doesn't get there, it's going to be Jefferson or Thielen. So if you're not playing Cook, I think it makes sense to go Jefferson. Adrian Peterson for value. Both Lions running backs are viable. Peterson and Kerryon Johnson. I don't have a super strong take on which one I prefer, but they're at min price. Both should get a decent amount of touches. I like both. Hurst or Jared Cook. Of those two guys, give me Hurst. Rodgers, Cook, Duke, McLaurin, Adams, Pittman, Tanyan, Mims. Fine. That looks good. You're running kind of the Green Bay Indy game stack, right? With Rodgers and Adams running back with Pittman. That was my thinking as well. Like mine's friends, appreciate the free content. Of course, man. Bengals a fine defense, cheap. Yes, yeah, you can look to the Bengals. It's Alex Smith playing quarterback, so like not great quarterback play there, and Bengals are cheap enough. Peterson and Bengals defense or Lions and Marvin Hall. I think you feel a little bit more comfortable with Peterson and the Bengals defense. Kerryon Johnson or Peterson, yeah. I wish I had a stronger take. Like I think Peterson's the early down guy, Kerryon Johnson the third down guy. Tough one. Like I think AP might be slightly safer just because like throughout this year he has gotten more touches than Kerryon Johnson. So maybe you feel a little bit more comfortable with AP. Is Andrews a must play with Lamar? No. I'm playing Lamar Jackson without anyone. So he's not a must play. If I was going to pair him with someone, it would be Andrews though. Higgins or Boyd, again, it's Boyd for me. It's super, super close there. Can you play Cook and Jefferson? You can. You can do it, but if you're playing both, a super expensive running back and a decently expensive wide receiver, then I think it makes sense to stack it. So maybe run it back with someone in Dallas, because if both Cook and Jefferson are going to get there, it's probably going to be a pretty high-scoring game. So maybe it makes sense to run it back with someone on Dallas. Hall, Keenan, Cole, Hamler, Mims. Who's your favorite? Mims for the price. I would probably go Mims, then Hamler, then Cole, then Hall. So scared of fading Kamara. I'm not as scared about fading him because he had 3 touchdowns last game. He's not going to continue to get that lucky with the touchdown variance. He's been pretty lucky with touchdown variance this year. And with Taysom Hill playing quarterback, he's not going to drop back a ton, I don't think. Like Kamara probably does get more touches in the ground, but I think that hurts his floor a little bit with Hill playing quarterback. Interesting, Cobb. Not a ton. He'll play the slot. I think what's his price point? Like he will go overlooked in the slate. He's at 3.6. You can give him a look. He's not going to break the slate. Like he can get you 10 fancy points. So I think I like the other wide receivers a little bit more around that price range. But if you feel super strong about Cobb, you can go to him. He'll play like 60 to 70% of the game out of the slot. Atlanta or Cincinnati defense? Give me Atlanta, I guess, but yeah, defense is not like something I have a super strong take on this week. Conley, greater than every other cheap wide receiver play. I'm fine with Conley. He's at min price, 8 targets in back-to-back games. The matchup's tougher, but definitely can look to him. Favorite mid-range wide receiver? Mid-range wide receiver, that's a good question. I think for me, mid-range wide receiver, it'll be one of those Cincinnati guys. So Higgins or Boyd for me. I think I slightly prefer Boyd because I think he goes a little bit lower owned. But yeah, I like those Cincinnati receivers today. DK, is Deontay Johnson or Brandon Cooks? I'd rather go Deontay Johnson there. I'm fine fading Kamara. Yep, I am as well. Yeah, there's a lot of decent plays actually in the mid-range for wide receiver. I think it's the Cincinnati guys or those Pittsburgh guys. That's where I would look for the mid-range today. Sanders, Connor, or Davis for cash? I don't think you can play James Conner in cash just because the way that Pittsburgh has played it last couple of games. Mike Davis playing PJ Walker or Sanders. Davis will get more targets, but Sanders probably more carries. That's a tough one. I will go Mike Davis, but that's close with him and Sanders. That's really close. All right, lock is coming up. We got about 1 minute until lock, guys. So ownership always takes forever to load in on the main slate, so we won't go over ownership. But yeah, I kind of told you guys where I'm going, right? I'm playing Lamar, and I'm running a little mini game stack there with Cincy and Washington. So that's the stand I'm taking. There's no clear game stack in this one, so I think it makes for a pretty good slate for GPPs. Gibson and McLaurin. What about Gibson and McLaurin? I think both are pretty good options today. Also, I want to thank you guys again for coming to check out the live stream. I really do appreciate the continued support, guys. We've had basically like 200 concurrent viewers on all of these main slates, as well as like the showdown videos as well. So thank you for coming out and continuing to support myself and the channel. I do really appreciate it. You play any golf, DK? I didn't play golf this week as far as DFS goes. Maybe next week. I'll probably have some videos for the bigger tournaments. So I might actually have a video this upcoming week because I have a little bit more time. So we'll see. Maybe I'll have a video up for DFS for golf. I do like playing DFS golf though. It's a fun sweat on Fridays with a cut. Good luck, DK. Smalling a takedown today for you. Hopefully, man. We'll see. I'm excited for the slate. It's one I feel it's a good slate, I think, because there's not a lot of super chalky plays and no real standout game stack. All right, well, lock, guys. Any last-minute questions, or else I will get out of here. Let's see. I love Lamar today. It might be a high-scoring game also. Yeah, Lamar's the guy for me. Thanks, dude. Watching from Winnicott. Hey, appreciate it, man. Thank you. Super ready for NBA to be back. Yeah, I am so excited about NBA. Under 3 weeks until preseason. So I will have content, obviously, for preseason as well as the regular season. So excited for that, guys. Every single day, slates. Yeah. It's going to be great. But I'm going to head out here. I'm going to go watch these games. Good luck today, guys. Hope you have a great day. I'll have a video up for Monday's Showdown slate later today. Be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I will see you guys all later. Thanks.